Hello everyone, it is Test Render here. Let's talk a little bit about lights. This video is not really a tutorial. I think this is more of me talking about my approach to lighting a scene. And this one that I've been working with lately is a pretty good candidate to talk about this. This is very typical scene for me. Like there's basically a floor and a wall and one character in the scene and a little bit of something else. This is still unfinished scene, so I will be adding and removing stuff days to come. I've already started working with lights, and I usually start it soon as I have anything in the scene. So the first thing that appears to the scene is usually the character or the figure, and the next one is the first piece of lighting. So that's because I truly believe, as it's been many times stated in many other videos and tutorials and books and booklets and whatnot, that lighting and lights in a scene like this, or in any scene, is the single most important thing that you can do. And there's a reason for that. It doesn't matter how good of a 3D modeler you are or how amazing scene you can create. If there's no lights in the scene, nobody's going to see anything. So in this scene, there's already some lighting. Even there's a whole group of lights here that I've already created, but I turned them off for this video's sake. But there's also, if we go check the render settings and environment, there's already an environment map here, which is from HDRI Haven, and this one is I think some kind of boiler room, but it doesn't really matter. It creates this interior type of lighting that I like for this scene. And I've also dropped the environment intensity to 0.4, which makes it pretty dark. So if we turn this main viewport to camera and then let it render, you see what I'm talking about. Let's hide these side panels for now because we don't really need them. So from this you can see there's a little bit of light coming from the HDRI, and from the backdrop behind the window there's a little bit of emissiveness in that texture, and not much else. The light is quite dark and gray and very even everywhere, and that's exactly what I wanted. So there's little shadows everywhere, but nothing is pitch black. So there's just this ambient light everywhere, very low ambient light. So this is good, this is good. Let's put the side panel back on, and how I usually do this is I keep this main viewport on textures shaded, and then use this auxiliary viewport here, this matchbox sized thing. I put that on NVIDIA preview render like this. I use the perspective view to create the lights. So first thing I usually do is to create the backlight, and if you have looked at my renders, you know that I really like backlights. When I'm creating a new spotlight, I select this checkbox Apply Active Viewport Transform, and that places the light wherever my view is set at this point. So if I back off, you can see the light is there. So that light doesn't really do much as a default settings, so let's go to lights tab and change something. I think the color can stay where it is. Let's crank the intensity up to 200. That doesn't really affect on the amount of light that comes out of the light source, but it affects on how much of that light bounces off different surfaces in the scene. So now I can change the light geometry. It's on default, it's point light, and that in general I think is a really bad idea for 3D. Like in real world, light sources tend to be very small, but in 3D renders, these point lights, they reveal all kinds of little mistakes. So turn it into a disk and keep it in the default. It's the height and width is 10, which is in centimeters. So that is what 4 inches, I think, pretty much. So that's the diameter of the light source, and you still can't see anything in the auxiliary viewport, and that's because the luminous flux is by default 1500, which is really low. So let's give it 200,000, and that should change things quite drastically. Yeah. So you can see there's now a little bit of light hitting the back of the character. So let's make another light. Let's put it here, pretty much on top of everything, almost to the wall. Maybe a little bit lower. And create a new spotlight. Now let's do the same thing here. Let's crank it up to 200. This one I think needs a little bit more spread angle, so maybe something like that. And let's make this one rectangle, and height can stay on, let's make it 5 centimeters, and the width, let's give it like let's say 80 centimeters. Like that. And luminous flux, let's give that the same 200,000 and see what changes. Little bit more light to here, and now if we take a look at that, how can we take a look at that light source? It's up there somewhere. I can bring it lower, a lot lower actually. And it's still not okay. There it's in the render, so let's maybe put it there so it stays out of the frame. So now if there's this button, if you're using the rectangle light geometry, you get this button light portal on and off. So if I turn it on, it shows me in the viewport the shape of the light source. I think this light portal thing is meant for situations where you have big windows and you want some kind of ambient light flowing through the window, so you can use this light portal there. But I only use it to check the size and shape of the light source, because I think there's something wrong with the how the light portal works. I hardly ever get it to work if I try to use it. So I think it's a pity that you don't see the shape of the light source in this normal spotlight mode. I think that's a clear flaw in the lights and stuff. Okay, let's make one more backlight, maybe somewhere here. Like really close to the wall, almost behind the little plant there. And create a new. I'm going to make this one a disc light too and give it a diameter of 30 centimeters, so a little bit bigger, and same 200,000 for luminous flux, and let's see what happens. Okay, we have a little bit light on the face, so I can use this viewport to select the spotlight I just created and keep on use it like a camera and move it around to place it where I want it to go, like something like this, maybe a little bit, turn it like that. Yeah, that looks all right. Oh, that's way too much. Let's drop the luminous flux. Let's give it like 100,000. Let's see what happens. That's still too much, I think. Let's give it 50,000. That's all right. And that's pretty much it, I think, for the lighting. So yeah, that looks pretty okay to me. I may want to add more light to coming from a little bit from the direction of camera. So if I show you what I've done previously, you probably can see it. Let me turn these 3 lights off that I just created and turn on the light group that I have previously made, so you can see there's a little bit more light coming from this direction of the camera. I still consider this lighting situation is work in progress, so I will probably change a lot of this stuff. Also, this scene is still work in progress, so I will keep adding stuff and changing the position of different objects and maybe even the pose of the character a little bit. I hope this video gave you some ideas and maybe clarified the approach that I have to this lighting thing. And well, I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. But in any case, have a good one.